Chapter 1. Free at last. Santa Rita County Jail, 6:42 a.m. The gates buzzed like a beast coughing up a man that tried to swallow whole. Felix Faye Carter stepped through the chain-link boundary into the early morning Oakland air. The sun hadn't even fully risen, but already it burned on his skin, freedom burning like a strange fever. 1 year locked up, 3 to 66 days in a concrete box. That kind of time don't pass like hours. It creeps like a roach in the dark. Iron exhaled deep. He ran his palm across his freshly faded taper and looked around like the sky might open up with bullets instead of blessings. Some habits didn't leave easy. A black Charger idled across the street, windows halfway down, music low. Inside sat Twan, his cousin, his day one, his cleaner when shit got messy. Twan stepped out as soon as he saw Faye. "Ah yee!" Twan's voice cracked across the block. "Look who the system couldn't hold." They dapped hard, pulling each other in like family that didn't always know how to say I love you. "You look the same, nigga," Twan joked, eyeing Faye's still lean frame. "I was expecting you to come out looking like Suge Knight or something." "I'm still me," Faye smirked. "Just a little meaner." The passenger doors flung open. Fetti and Nitty jumped out. They didn't run, too cool for that. But the energy was heavy. This was more than just a pickup. This was the return of a boss. "What's up with my guy?" Fetti said, sliding Faye a thick roll of hundreds. "Put something in your pocket." Faye flipped through it. "Damn. Niggas ain't forgot." Nitty nodded. "We ain't them kind of dudes." They all hugged it out under the rising sun, laughing like fools until Faye spotted a familiar figure behind the tinted glass of a blacked-out SUV parked down the street. Twan followed his gaze. "Already?" he muttered. Faye's jaw clenched. Fucking Carter. Officer Carter. Cece's daddy. The crooked-ass cop who tried to put Fe under the jail the day he found out his daughter was getting dicked down by the same man he'd been chasing for years. "I told you that girl was too sweet to be worth the smoke," Nitty muttered, eyes still on the SUV. Faye grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Can't help but feel right. Shit hit different when it's real." The SUV crept off. No sirens, no lights. Just that cold, silent threat that Carter always left lingering in the air. They got in the Charger and peeled off. Faye was back. But the streets had shifted while he was gone. New rules, old debts, and somewhere in the middle of it all, Cece, Chapter 2, Bound by Blood and Bricks. Greasy Part 1 rewrite. 5 years earlier, rain-slick alley off Bancroft and 90th. Faye bled in the rain. The alley behind Luther's Liquor stank like garbage juice and gunpowder. Faye was on his knees, head spinning, lip busted, trying to figure out if he'd just been pistol whipped or if the thunder overhead had cracked his skull open. Above him stood Officer Carter, drenched in a black tactical jacket, the Oakland PD badge hanging from his chest like a medal of evil. His pistol was still hot in his palm, smoke curling from the barrel like the devil's breath. "Get up, bitch," Carter spat, jabbing the gun into Faye's temple. Faye didn't move. He just blinked through blood and rain. "You think I don't know, motherfucker? You think I ain't been watching? You slanging dope on my corners? And now I find out you smashing my daughter?" Faye coughed up blood and spit. "Man, fuck you," Carter kneed him in the ribs. Faye gasped and dropped to his side, wheezing. The duffel bag, his duffel, sat open a few feet away. 2 kilos of uncut product inside. Faye had been on his way to make a quiet flip, but Carter had other plans. 2 bricks, Carter said, walking over to the bag. Clean, fresh, stamped and sealed. "You really thought you was moving weight like that in my city without kicking up?" Faye pulled himself to his knees. "I don't work for no cop," Carter laughed, loud and ugly. "Work with me, fool. You think I came here to lock you up?" He crouched low, his voice ice cold. "I came to offer you a promotion." Faye narrowed his eyes. "I can make your life sweet," Carter continued. "I tip you off on raids. I clean your name off evidence reports. I plug you in with a pipeline. You move bricks without heat, but I get my 25% off top." F.A. spit at his boots. "You crooked piece of shit." Carter didn't flinch. "That's right. Crooked. And smart. I ain't like them rookie-ass narcs. I've been eating off the game longer than you been pissing in the bed." Up, walked to his squad car, and popped the trunk. Faye expected handcuffs. Instead, another duffel. Bigger. Fuller. Carter tossed it next to Faye with a thud. 5 bricks. Top shelf. Straight from down south. "I got 'em for less than your plug could dream of." Faye stared at it. "Why me?" he asked. Carter grinned. "'Cause I know you ain't stupid. And I know your loyalty ain't to no gang. You loyal to money. Just like me." Faye sat in silence, blood still dripping from his nose. The bricks were right there, power in plastic wrap. "And Cece?" Faye asked, wiping his mouth. Carter's face twitched. "You stay the fuck away from my daughter," he growled. "I catch you in her bed again, I'll drop your body where your mama shops for groceries." Faye looked up, the pain in his body dulling beneath a new fire in his chest. "You kill me now," he said slowly, "or I take that bag and make you regret it." For a long moment, Carter said nothing. Then he laughed and walked away. Fe stood up, looked down at the bag, then picked it up. Not because he wanted to be a pawn in Carter's game, but because he already had a plan to flip the whole board. Chapter 3, The Return, The Risk, and the Real Ones. Greasy Part 1 Rewrite. The smell of grilled ribs and blunt smoke floated through the air like church incense. Fe stepped into his mama's yard, chain swinging, white tee pressed, eyes scanning every face like a general returning from the trenches. This wasn't his first welcome home party, but the vibe tonight felt different. Not celebration. Surveillance. Kids played tag near the porch, cousins cracked jokes over bottles of E&J, and OGs nodded with quiet approval from the back. But under it all, tension. Fe lit a backwood and leaned against the fence as his cousin Nitty walked up. "Man, look at this nigga," Nitty laughed, giving him a dap. "You look like you just did Fed time," Fe smirked. "County got too comfortable. I had to leave," Nitty chuckled, then got serious. "Word is you got back in the game already." Fe raised an eyebrow. "That what they saying?" "Yeah, that, and you still fucking with that cop's daughter?" Fe looked past Nitty, eyes locking onto Cece, standing on the porch in a tank top and tight jeans, hair pulled back, gold hoops shining in the sunset. She gave a small smile, hesitant, like she knew being here could get both of them killed. Fe nodded once. Cool, controlled. Just then, a blacked-out Ford Explorer rolled by slow. Fe stiffened. Nitty followed his gaze. "Carter," Nitty muttered. Fe flicked his blunt to the ground. "Nigga don't know when to quit." The Explorer parked across the street. Carter got out, alone, in full uniform. His bulletproof vest made him look swollen with power. He adjusted his belt and walked up like he owned the whole East. Fe didn't move. Carter smiled, cold and calculated. "You enjoying your freedom, boy?" Fe stepped forward. "Like a motherfucker, you think you smart, playing both sides. But this game ain't got no draw, only winners and body bags." Fee's fists tightened. "Then I guess we both got decisions to make." A silence stretched long between them. Carter leaned in. "I told you, stay away from my daughter. I meant that." Fe didn't blink. "You ever touch me again, you gonna have to call for backup before I leave you in a ditch." Before Carter could respond, "Aye," Fetti called out from the porch. "Chill that shit out. Mama coming?" The front door creaked open and Mama J, Fe's mother, stepped out with a tray of food and a suspicious glare. Carter pulled back with a smirk. "See you soon, Felix." Fe didn't respond. He watched him leave like a wolf watches a wounded rival limp away. "Stay out of trouble," she whispered. Fe slipped it on and walked toward the porch. Cece met him halfway. "I told you he'd never stop," she said. Fe looked her in the eyes. "He gonna stop one way or another." She took his hand, pulled him inside, and just like that, the line between love and war blurred into the same damn hallway. Chapter 4, Blood Ties, Loose Ends. Greasy Part 1 Rewrite. By the third week out, Fe felt the weight of the streets creeping back into his bones. Freedom was like a rental car. You got it for a short time, and if you don't return it clean, they come for you with interest. The trap house on 85th smelled like Hennessy, backwoods, and ambition. Fe was leaned back on a busted recliner, chain resting on his chest, playing spades with Quan and Nitty when a knock hit the front door like a warning. "Bop, bop, bop." Fe squinted at the time. Ain't even noon yet. Through the blinds and shook his head with a grin. The door opened and in came Chrissy, 14 going on 30. Braids swinging, big hoodie, and a fake Birkin bouncing off her hip. She was family but wild, the kind that would steal from you then help you look for it. "Damn, look who it is," Fe smirked. "You home and still ain't tapped in with your little cousin?" She joked, tossing him a fat stack of cash. "Peace offering." Fe caught the money. Thick rubber band. Looked like 10 bands easy. "Nah, what's this?" he asked, suddenly on alert. Chrissy plopped down on the couch like it was nothing. "Bipped a Maserati last night. Some lame left his bag on the seat. Easy come up." Fe flipped through the stack. "This ain't no damn lame money, Chrissy. This looking like cartel cash." Chrissy just smiled and pulled out another wad, bigger than the first. Fee's stomach turned. "Yo, you hit 100 ball? About 97, rounding up." The room went silent. Even Nitty leaned forward. "Yo, where'd that bag at?" "In the trunk. Why?" Fe stood. "Nigga, you could have just declared war and didn't know it." Boom. The front door exploded off the hinges. Splinters flew. Screams. Gun barrels pointed like laser beams. Fee's reflexes kicked in. He grabbed Chrissy by the arm, yanked her toward the back, yelling, "Go." Twan flipped the couch. Nitty let off 2 warning shots toward the door before diving behind the fridge. Fe and Chrissy bolted out the back, ducking gunfire as they ran through the alley. Chrissy was crying now, the rush wearing off. Fe kept pulling her by the wrist. They didn't stop running until they reached the underpass off Bancroft, hearts pounding like war drums. Fe turned to her, chest heaving. "Who the fuck did you rob, Chrissy?" She shook her head. "I ain't know, it was just a bag. It was sitting there." Fe stared at the ground, hands on his knees. This wasn't random, this was personal. And whoever they hit, they were coming for everything. Chapter 5, The Price of a Bag, Greasy Part 1 Rewrite. Fe lit a cigarette with shaking fingers, something he hadn't done since his third bid in county. He stood under the Bancroft overpass, sweat dripping down his neck, mind racing through every possible explanation for what just happened. Cece sat on the curb a few feet away, hugging her knees, still crying. "You good?" Fe asked, voice low. She didn't answer. He walked over, crouched beside her, and placed a hand on her back. "Cece, you good? I ain't mean to." She sniffled. "I ain't know it was like that. I thought it was a come-up." Fe looked away, clenching his jaw. He didn't blame her. She was a product of the same streets that made him. But he knew what this meant. He pulled out his phone and hit Doc. "Ring, ring." No answer. He texted, "Emergency, call a SAP." Then turned back to Cece. "We gotta move. This spot hot. Can't go back to Twan's either." He flagged down a ride, a burner car parked a block away. A 98 Cutlass with no plates and the engine sounding like it needed prayer. They dipped. They ended up at an abandoned auto shop off International BLVD. Fe had used it once before to lay low. Concrete floors, no cameras, no neighbors, perfect silence. Cece lay down on a dusty cot in the corner. Fe paced. Then his phone buzzed. Private number. He picked up. "Yo." There was a pause. Then a low, raspy voice. "You got something that don't belong to you." Fe went cold. "Who dis?" "Let's not play dumb, Fe. That little girl, she took something from my people. I want it back, every dollar, with interest." Fee's mind snapped into focus. "You talking about Cece? She didn't even know what it was." "Don't matter. You got 48 hours. Then we start peeling your crew off one by one." Click. Fe stared at the phone like it just told his fortune. Then it rang again. This time, Doc Fe answered. "Where you been?" Doc's voice was calm, too calm. "My bad, I had to lay low. I heard about the hit at Twan's. You hear who it was?" Doc paused. "Word is Quan." Fe's spine tightened. That name carried weight. Quan wasn't no corner boy. He was old school, strategic, vicious, known for torturing cats just to send messages. Fe's voice dropped to a growl. "Tell me everything you know." Doc cleared his throat. "I'll pull up." Fe hung up and turned to Cece, who was now asleep, curled in a ball. He pulled a blanket over her and kissed her forehead, then stepped outside to smoke, gripping his burner tight. He knew now this wasn't just a bag, it was a bomb, and the timer had started ticking. Chapter 6, Doc's Visit. Fe stood by the alley entrance of the abandoned auto shop, blunt between his fingers, pistol tucked into his hoodie pocket. Streetlights buzzed above him, casting a pale orange wash on the concrete. In the distance, a motor backfired, but his eyes were locked on the street corner, then headlights. Doc pulled up slow in a black Lexus, quiet, clean, too polished for the hour. Fe put the blunt out and stepped forward. Doc got out the car, wearing a gray hoodie with the sleeves pushed up, revealing a brand new Audemars Piguet. Too flashy, too much for somebody who claimed he was laying low. "What's good, King?" Doc greeted, dapping Fe up. But his palm didn't lock the way it used to. There was a distance in it, a hesitation. Fe caught it. "You tell me," Fe replied, nodding toward the shop. "We inside." Inside, Cece was still sleeping in the back room. Fe made sure the door was closed before sitting across from Doc at an old metal desk. "You sure it was Quan?" Fe asked. "Straight to business." Doc nodded. "Word on the wire says he put a green light out on you. He think you ran off with his whole bag." "I ain't run off with shit," Fe growled. "My little cousin bipped the wrong car. I ain't know it was his." Doc leaned back like he wasn't fazed. "You think that mattered to a nigga like Quan?" Fe shook his head. "What else you hear?" Doc looked around the room like he didn't want to answer. "Then they say Quan got info from somebody close to you. He knows your drop spots. Knew where Twan's sister stayed." "That ain't regular." Fe's eyes narrowed. "And who the fuck do you think told him?" Silence. Fe leaned forward. "Don't play dumb, bruh. If Quan knowing that much, he got it from a plug. From somebody in this circle. And there ain't many of us left." Doc blinked slow. "So now you trying to say it's me?" Fe didn't move. "I'm saying if the shoe fit." Doc's jaw flexed. "I've been holding you down for years." Fe stood. "You the one told me to stash at that East Oakland spot. Same day that shit got raided." "That was coincidence." Fe pulled his pistol and pointed it straight at Doc's head. "No such thing in this line of work." Doc raised both hands, calm but serious. "Fe, don't do this. You emotional. I ain't no snitch." Fe stared at him, then lowered the piece, just slightly. "You right. You ain't no snitch." Blam! Blam! Emptied 3 in his chest before Doc could even. The body dropped in silence. Fe stood over it, breathing heavy, smoke rising from the barrel. "No snitch," he whispered. "You a fucking traitor." In the back, Cece stirred but didn't wake. Fe took Doc's burner from his pocket and scrolled through the last few calls. Blocked. Blocked. Unknown. Then one labeled Q. Fe's stomach twisted. He stepped out the shop into the night air, his eyes full of fire. This war wasn't just survival anymore. This was cleansing. Chapter 7. Ties That Burn. Greasy Part 1 Rewrite. The trap house smelled like sweat, gun oil, and stale Dutch guts. Fe paced the floor, phone in one hand, Glock in the other. His eyes were heavy, bloodshot, Not from the weed, but from the weight. Doc's betrayal wasn't just business, it was personal. That was family. And now, he was one more ghost Fe had to carry. Quan slammed open the back door. His shirt was damp from running. The Glock in his waistband looked like it had already been used. You call this a war? My baby sister damn near got snatched from the block, and now I'm hearing Doc is dead? Fe didn't look up. Doc fed Quan intel. Twan's jaw clenched. You sure? Fe walked over slow and dropped Doc's burner phone on the table. The last call list was still pulled up. Twan stared at it. Q, at least 3 times a day. Damn, Twan muttered. He really did that shit. Fe nodded once. I handled it. Twan backed away and rubbed his face. You handled it, huh? Just like you handled letting Chrissy dip her hand in a bag meant for a fucking cartel boss? Fee's voice dropped, cold, controlled. Watch your... Twan stared at him hard, but he didn't press it. The rage was there, but so was the understanding. They were all under pressure, and pressure makes 2 things, diamonds, or body bags. Cece arrived not long after, stomping into the house like a storm. You still ignoring my calls, Fe? Fe turned, surprised. Cece, I'm handling shit. She walked up, chest out, tears in her eyes, but fire in her voice. Handling it, or hiding from it? Twan stood between them. Not now, he warned. Nah, I'm tired, Cece snapped. You out here getting hunted, and I'm sitting in my crib like a damn dummy while the world burned down around me. Fe stepped closer. What you trying to say? Cece's eyes welled. Then she dropped the bomb. My daddy, he ain't just dirty. He's been working with Quan. That's how he got your stash raided. That's how he knew where to find Chrissy. Silence. Twan's mouth opened, then closed. Fe blinked. You said what? Cece nodded slowly, broken but brave. I overheard him. He don't even trust Quan. He just want leverage on you. He been running his own play from the jump. Fe walked back to the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter until his knuckles turned pale. Was right not to trust me. I should have told you. Fe turned and hugged her. Tight. She didn't expect it. I ain't mad, he whispered. I needed to hear it from you. Later that night, the house was quiet. Twan posted up with the AR near the front. Cece laid on the couch, eyes wide open, mind racing. Fe sat in the back, phone pressed to his ear. Time. Get what you got and lay low. I'll hollow in. He hung up, eyes locked on the map in front of him. Carter's patrol routes, Quan's warehouses, dead drop spots, rat lines. This wasn't survival anymore. This was purging. Chapter 8. Ceasefire coffin. Greasy Part 1 rewrite. Rain hit the East Oakland pavement like warning shots from heaven. Fe leaned against the hood of a beat-up Lexus with no plates, hoodie soaked, eyes sharp under the streetlight glow. The city buzzed low in the background, but in Fe's head, it was silent. The kind of silence before everything breaks. Inside the trap, Cece sat at the kitchen table cleaning her pistol. Slow, methodical, focused. Every wipe of the cloth felt like wiping years of blood off her memory. Her hands shook, but her eyes were calm. She knew what had to be done. Fe walked in, dripping, but calm. It's time. Cece looked up. Where he at? Bayview. Word is he's got a side house out there. Quiet. Off the books. No body cams, no dash logs. Perfect place to plot. Cece stood. Then we pull up. Fe studied her. You sure? Nodded. He's not my father anymore. He's a threat. An hour later, they were parked outside an old duplex near the port. It was dead quiet, too quiet. Carter's car sat out front, lights off, no movement. Fe checked his clip. Cece chambered her round. Last chance to stay in the car, he told her. I'm riding, remember? She replied, her voice steady. Let's go was already waiting, gun in hand, smirk on his. You think I ain't see this coming? He said as Fe and Cece entered. Y'all dumb little love story been playing like a fucking soap opera in my rear view. Fe aimed first, dropped the weapon. Carter laughed. I am the fucking weapon, boy. He turned to Cece. So this what we doing? You picking him over blood? You stopped being blood the day you sold my people out, she snapped. Carter's eyes flicked with anger. You got no idea what this city really is, girl. I was the only reason your little gangster here ain't buried already. Then it happened. Carter raised his pistol. Fast, too fast, Fe squeezed off a shot but missed. The bullet shattered a lamp beside Carter's head. Cece didn't hesitate. Blow. One shot to the chest. Dead center. Carter's body jerked back, then dropped hard, gurgling. Cece stood over him, breathing heavy, the pistol still shaking in her hand. I'm done being scared of you. Fe grabbed her, pulled her close. She didn't cry, just closed her eyes and let the silence sink in. Back at the trap, the mood was ice cold. Nitty stood near the window with the AR. Twan was on the porch, head down, listening for sirens. Fe walked in with Cece behind him. Bloody hoodie, calm face. It's done. They didn't need to ask who. They just nodded. That night, Fe sat alone in the basement, phone lit, burner line buzzing. He pulled up a number. Fetti, time to move. Pack up whatever you still got and disappear for a minute. Fetti replied quick. Already did. Got some credit game lined up in Reno. I'm off the radar, bro. Be safe. Fe hung up. The storm was just beginning, but the dead weight was gone. Doc Carter. Anyone that fed the wolves was now under them. Fe exhaled smoke into the dark. One king down, another check made. Chapter 9, Quiet Heat. Greasy Part 1 rewrite. The streets didn't scream. They whispered. After Carter's body got dragged out of that duplex by cleaners Fe trusted with his life, a strange calm washed over East Oakland. But it wasn't peace. It was that eerie silence you get right before a twister hits the block. Iron moved differently now. Cold, calculated. No smiles, no slips. Just movements and motives. At a new safe house, this one tucked behind a boarded-up hardware store, Fe sat with Cece, Nitty, and Quan. The lights were dim. A pistol on every table. No music, just the sound of tension and strategy. We made noise, Nitty muttered. Carter was still a cop, even if he was dirty. That badge alone gonna bring pressure. I ain't worried about pressure, Fe replied. I'm worried about leaks. Feds ain't got nothing if nobody talking. Twan nodded. So far we good. Phone's been cleaned, stash spots rotated. But they watching us now. Cece sat quiet, eyes cold, hands gripping her knees. She hadn't said much since pulling the trigger on her pops, but her silence said everything. She crossed a line most people don't come back from. And Fe knew that kind of blood changes people forever. Meanwhile, in a federal building downtown, Agent Wallace clicked through photos like he was flipping through an album of bodies. Carter's dead photo, Quan's crime scene, surveillance stills of Fe at a liquor store, a list of burner numbers, intercepted messages. Greasy, he said under his breath. That's what they call him. The assistant entered. Sir, new update. One of Carter's informants is in custody. Wallace's eyes lit up. Run the whole block. Every known associate. I want the air sucked out of this crew. Freeze accounts. Flag travel. If they breathe wrong, I want to hear about it. Back at the trap, Fe's burner buzzed. Unknown number. He answered but didn't speak. A low voice came through the static. Tell your man Nitty to chill. He hot. Got eyes on him from San Leandro to Eastmont. And he's sloppy. Click. Fe stared at the phone, jaw tight. You gotta disappear for a minute, he told Nitty. Nah, fuck that, I'm good, Nitty barked. Fe slammed the table. Nigga, I said go ghost, that ain't a suggestion. Silence. Nitty stood up, grabbed his duffel. I'm gone. Twan lit a cigarette, shook his head. Fed's moving in. We either play ghost or we play coffin. Fe exhaled. I got one more play to make. Then we shift. Looking out over the city that raised him, robbed him, tested him. Carter was dead. Doc was dead. Quan gone. But the system, still breathing. He pulled out his chess piece, the king, from his pocket, held it tight, and whispered, next move's the one that matters. The sun hadn't even touched the skyline, but Fe was already in motion. The game didn't wait. And now, with the heat turned all the way up, survival meant eliminating every breadcrumb they left behind. He leaned over the hood of the stolen Nissan, eyes locked on a hand-drawn map, cigarette burning between his fingers. 3 stash houses, 2 car drops, 4 phones, all of it had to go. Inside the house, Cece stood at the sink washing blood off her hands. Not her father's blood, Fe had taken care of that, but the kind you don't see. The guilt, the weight, the stain of what she'd done. Fe stepped in behind her. You good? She didn't turn around. What happens when the feds start asking about me? We disappear, Fe said flat. Simple. You make it sound easy. It is, if we don't slip. She finally turned, looking at him dead in his eyes. I ain't never slipping again. Across town, Fetti sat in a backroom office. Suits on hangers, credit repair posters on the wall, a whiteboard with game plans written in Sharpie. He wasn't on the block anymore. No more bricks, no more corners. But he didn't forget where he came from. All spots clean, ain't no prints left. Fe texted back, stay off the radar. We got Fed eyes on us now. Fetti sighed, locked the phone in a drawer, and went back to coaching a client on fixing their late payments. Hustle was hustle. Meanwhile, Nitty wasn't as lucky. He'd been moving too loud. A shootout on 98th, a bag drop on camera, too many faces, too many enemies still breathing. They scooped him up at a corner store, zip-tied and hooded, not even knowing he was being watched. By noon, Fe got the call Nitty was gone. Cece watched him hang up and toss the phone across the room. They got Nitty? Fe nodded, snatched him mid-move. Probably been on his tail since the Carter scene. Cece's jaw tightened. That's on me. Fe didn't argue. Later that night, Twan stood in the shadows of the old foundry near Fruitvale. Hoodie up, phone off. He had gone off grid, but he wasn't done playing the game. He was just waiting on Fe's signal, a whisper in the dark, a call to arms. Whatever it would be, it had to be smart, surgical. Fe, meanwhile, was back in motion. He stood over a pile of cell phones and SIM cards, pouring gasoline on the floor of one of the old trap houses. Every couch, every scale, every photo, gone. He struck a match. Whoosh. The flames danced like spirits finally set free. Fe stood there for a moment, just watching. Then he walked out the back door, hoodie up, never looking back. On a beach in Aruba 2 weeks later, the sky was gold and soft, the waves calm. Fe and Cece sat on white loungers under a palm-shaded umbrella. No phones, no pistols, no past, at least not for the moment. She reached out and touched his hand. He turned to her. You ever think we'd make it here? She smiled slightly. Not in this lifetime. Fe sipped his drink, then looked out at the ocean. Don't get too comfortable, he said. This ain't checkmate. Cece raised an eyebrow. Then what is it? Fe smirked. Check. Greasy, crownless kings. Chapter 11. Santa soil. The Caribbean breeze danced off Fe's skin, but the war never left his bones. He sat back on the white sand of Aruba, eyes hidden behind dark shades, body stretched under a palm tree. The waves rolled in calm, but his mind was still in Oakland, where ghosts had names and silence cost lives. Beside him, Cece sipped fresh juice out of coconut, but even paradise couldn't wash the blood off her hands. She wore it quiet now, a different woman than she was just months ago, no longer Officer Carter's daughter. Now she was the killer of her father, the queen to a man hunted by both gangs and government. They weren't hiding. They were reloading. The burner phone buzzed once in the sand between. Fe grabbed it. A simple message. Quan's people landed. Word is, they not coming to talk. Fe didn't flinch. He passed the phone to Cece. She read it, nodded. They coming? They already here. Fe stood up, brushed the sand off his arms, and looked out at the endless ocean like he could see Oakland across the water. In her packed light, he said, we leaving tonight, back in Oakland. A lowrider crept through seminary. Inside it sat Mondo, Quan's cousin from Houston. Slick braids, gold frames, and war behind his eyes. He moved like Quan never did, sharp, coordinated. He wasn't just in Oakland for revenge. He was there to replace Quan. He wanted the city, the routes, the respect. And he wanted Fe's head for decoration. You said he left the country? Mondo asked. Yeah, but he ain't stayed gone, said a voice from the passenger seat. The word is he coming back soon. Meanwhile, Tuan moved through the shadows of the east like a ghost. Since Carter's death and Quan's killing, he kept off radar, living out a stash spot in Richmond, studying the chessboard like a general. But he wasn't idle. He had a crew now, not dealers, soldiers, ex-military, ex-cons, all silent killers. Tuan knew this wasn't just street beef anymore. It was organized warfare. And when Fe landed back on Oakland soil, Tuan was already waiting at the airstrip with fresh keys, clean papers, and blueprints. Nightfall, Oakland. Fe stepped out the black SUV at a downtown rooftop safe house. No announcement, no noise, just presence. Tuan greeted him with a nod. You sure you ready to start again? Tuan asked. Fe didn't answer. He just reached in his duffel, pulled out a black Glock, and chambered around. Click. Let's build the new empire, he said. One coffin at a time. Chapter 12, The Bloodline. The East was cold even in the summer, not the weather, the energy. Something was off. Fe stood in a back alley behind an old soul food spot that doubled as a trap. The hood had changed in his absence. Faces were different. Some corners had gone silent. Others were too loud. Tuan passed him a burner. Mondo just touched down at the port, he said. Got 6 SUVs, out-of-town plates, armored. Where they posted? Old steel yard off 85th. Locked it down like a base. Fe nodded. We hit them before they hit us. Cece stood by the car, hair tied up, hoodie low. She hadn't said much since they landed. Her silence wasn't fear, it was focus. Fe could see it in her eyes. She was building a storm inside. You cool? He asked. Cece nodded once. I'm ready. Fe stepped closer, touched her chin gently. You sure you good with all this? We crossing lines now we can't uncross. I crossed it the day I put a bullet in my daddy, she said coldly. Ain't no going back for me. Fe just nodded. Meanwhile, Mondo stood in a warehouse surrounded by men in tactical vests, crates of automatic weapons, bulletproof vests stacked high like groceries. A map of Oakland spread out on the table. One spot was circled in red, the 83rd Street trap. You sure he came back? Mondo asked his scout. Positive. He touched down 3 nights ago. Already cleaned house, set up base in the hills. Good, Mondo grinned. Let's send a little welcome package. A silver van pulled up near the 83rd trap. 2 masked men hopped out, each carrying duffel bags wired with C4. They moved fast, silent, trained. But Fe was faster. He watched them from a rooftop through night vision binoculars. Nitty might have been gone, but the system Fe set up since coming back was tighter than ever. He spoke into a mic. We got movement. Light 'em up. Blam. Tuan's sniper shot dropped one of the bombers before his feet even hit the steps. The other turned to run. Brap. Cece let loose from the alley, her Uzi dancing in the dark. Blood hit the sidewalk. The van exploded. Flames licked the walls of a nearby building. The message was sent. Fe was back and watching. At the War Room Trap HQ, Cece sat cleaning her weapon in silence. Fe paced, piecing the chessboard together. Mondo don't move like Quan, he said. He's strategic, cartel trained. He ain't gonna fold from heat. We need intel from inside. Tuan looked up. Then it's time to tap Doc's people. Fee's jaw tightened. Doc on. Yeah, Tuan said. But he ain't die alone. He had runners. Runners still eating off the back end. Somebody close to him knows the port schedules, drop routes, where Mondo moves. Fe nodded slowly. Set it up. Tuan picked up the burner and made a call. Across town, a woman in a red hoodie answered the phone. Her name, Rena. Doc's old bottom, the one who used to clean the books, move silent money, and sit 2 seats away while Doc played both sides. Gonna let me walk after what Doc did? She asked over. Tuan answered. Fe don't want you to walk. He wants you to ride. Rena paused, then smiled. Tell him I'm in Chapter 13, Rena's return. The basement was quiet, too quiet for what it was. Cece watched Rena from across the table, eyes sharp, finger resting on the trigger guard of her Glock. Trust was fragile these days, and any loose end could be the one to choke them all. Rena, wrapped in a red North face, lit a blunt with a slow, deliberate flick. Damn, she said, exhaling. It still smelled like ghosts down here. Doc used to run numbers from this room. Fe sat back, arms folded, studying her. You said you had something. I got more than something, Rena replied. She reached into her coat, pulled out a USB drive, and slid it across the table. What's this? Shipment schedule, 6 crates. Mondo's using the construction sites off 70% third as storage. Late night drops. No paperwork. No noise. That USB got the security layout too? Fe didn't move. What you want for it? Rena leaned back, eyes locked with his. A seat, Cece scoffed. A seat? I don't want the corner, Rena said cool. I want equity. Doc used to feed me scraps while making millions off both sides. I want in, real this time. Fe leaned forward. You crossed me, Rena. I know, she interrupted. You gonna kill me, just like you did, Doc. They locked eyes, tension dripped off the walls. Then Fe nodded. You in 2 nights later. The trap house on 73rd looked quiet, like every other abandoned property in the city. But inside, it was a fortress. Infrared beams, motion sensors, and 6 armed guards posted like statues. Fe crouched behind a rusted-out van across the alley, Tuan and Cece beside him. Rena was watching from a camera feed she tapped into using old blueprints in one of Doc's burner laptops. Voice came through Fe's earpiece. Guard, change in. They moved like ghosts. Tuan neutralized the backdoor man with a quick chokehold. Cece planted explosives on the power grid. Fe moved inside, silent, sweeping the corridor until he found the crates. He cracked one open. AKs, ammo, bulletproof vests. Another, stacks of cash, shrink-wrapped, marked with a foreign bank stamp. Mondo wasn't just prepping for war. He was building an army. Fe grabbed 2 bricks of cash, left the rest untouched, and signaled the retreat. But as they backed out the side alley, boom! An explosion rocked the block. Not theirs. Someone else had set charges. From the rooftop, snipers opened fire. Brat! Tuan grabbed Cece and pulled her behind a dumpster. Fe dove behind a broken fridge, bullets pinging inches from his face. Move! He yelled. A black SUV skidded around the corner, Fetti behind the wheel. Get in! He shouted. Doors flung open. They piled in as bullets shattered the windshield. Fetti floored it, tires screeching as the truck fishtailed down the block. Somebody knew we was coming, Fe growled. Cece turned around, blood running from her shoulder. There's a snitch. Rena's voice came back on the radio. Fe, we got a bigger problem. What now? That was my laptop they traced. I think they know where the safe house is. Back at the hideout, Fe stood still, his face like stone. This ain't checkers no more, he said. It's chess, Cece whispered, and we just lost a piece. Fe looked at the blood on his hands. Not his, Cece's. It was deeper now. They made it personal. Chapter 4, Dead Men Talk, Santa Rita County Jail. Nitty sat at the edge of his bunk, staring at the scratched-up concrete wall like it owed him money. His jumpsuit sagged on him, orange, faded, too damn familiar. He'd been down before, but this time felt different. He wasn't just doing time. He was a chess piece now, and the feds were moving fast. Word in the yard was that FBI agents had been coming around with sealed indictments, whispering plea deals in quiet rooms. A couple shooters from the east side had already folded. One even name-dropped FE's government in a signed statement. Nitty wasn't breaking, but he wasn't sleeping either. Visitation room, 2 days later. A man in a tight suit with a lazy eye and no eyebrows sat across from Nitty. He didn't slide a badge. He didn't give a name. Just placed a photo on the table. Doc, laid out, dead, eyes open. We found your boy in West Oakland, the man said cold. 2 in the dome, 1 in the neck. You think that's a coincidence? Nitty stared, didn't flinch, didn't blink. You're not the target, Mr. Mitchell, the agent said, leaning in. Your boss is. But if you protect him, you'll end up in the next photo. Still silence. The agent sighed. We'll talk again soon. Nitty leaned back, smiling slightly. Nah, we won't. Tuan stood by the window, eyes scanning the skyline. You think they're gonna flip Nitty? Face stopped. Nitty? He scoffed. Nah, he a soldier, but they closing in. Fe nodded. We not waiting on no miracle, he said, pulling out a folded paper map. We breaking Nitty out. Chapter 15, break bread or break out. The trap was quiet. Fe stood in the center of the living room, burner in one hand, game plan in the other. He'd been back home for less than a week, but the city felt like it was breathing heavier than usual. Too many whispers, too many eyes, and Nitty still locked down in Santa Rita. Cece moved through the kitchen, heavy silence between them. Since her pops got dropped, she'd been different, stronger, colder. Her loyalty wasn't in question. If anything, she was more ride or die than ever. Fe nodded to himself, then turned to Twan, who was leaning against the wall cleaning a Draco. It's time, Fe said. Twan looked up. We really doing this? Answered. Nitty didn't fold. He kept his mouth shut. Fetti lit a black and mild and blue smoke toward the ceiling. How we moving? Fe slapped a rough sketch of the jail's transport route on the table. Tuesday. Transfer van leaves Santa Rita at 4:20 a.m. headed to Alameda Courthouse. We intercept on the 580. There's a soft curve on Redwood Road. Only one security car follows. Cece looked up. And what if it goes left? Cracked his neck. Then we kill everything moving. Tuesday morning, 4:19 a.m. The freeway was ghostly, slick with dew. Twan was positioned up the incline in a parked utility van. Fe and Fetti sat in a stolen Ram truck angled just ahead of the transfer route. Cece followed from the opposite side in a blacked-out Charger. Then it happened. Van incoming, Cece's voice whispered. Fe counted down silently. 3, 2, boom. A spike strip ripped under the transport tires. The van jerked sideways, metal grinding asphalt. Twan pulled forward and blocked the rear. Fe jumped out first, ski mask on, AR-15 in hand. Out the fucking van! He screamed, firing into the air. 2 guards panicked. One reached for his weapon. Fe laid him down on sight. Blam! 1 shot to the neck. Fetti rushed the side door, popped the locks. Nitty stumbled out, eyes wide with disbelief. Damn, y'all really did it. Let's go, Twan barked, throwing him a hoodie and gloves. They moved like a crew who'd done it 10 times before. They're back in the trucks, gone in 90 seconds. No words, no slips, no witnesses. Later that night, East Oakland, Fe, Nitty, Twan, Fetti, and Cece sat in a dimly lit warehouse, one of the old car chop shops they'd converted into a safe house. Fe looked over at Nitty. You good? Nitty grinned. Never better. Then his face dropped serious. But we got a new problem. Fe sat forward. Quan's people, Nitty said. They in the city heavy now, ain't even hiding. Someone posted outside old corners. Ain't from here but acting like they run shit. Fe clenched his jaw. We let that slide, they gonna think we soft. Nitty smirked. Exactly. Just then the warehouse door creaked open. A tall, slim figure stepped through, glasses on, hoodie low. He moved quiet, but carried the aura of someone dangerous. Fe cracked a smile. Look who finally jumped off the porch. Kuh, Fe's little brother. 6 feet 4 inches, book smart. Never wanted to be in the mix, but loyalty ran deep in the bloodline. I heard niggas was out here getting greasy without me, Kay said, flashing a cold grin. Everyone laughed, but they knew the board just changed. With Key in the field now, the war for Oakland was just beginning. And Fe was ready to play the long game. Chapter 16, blood on the welcome mat. The sun hadn't even touched the rooftops yet, but Oakland was already awake. The streets felt different. The temperature wasn't in the weather. It was in the air, the eyes, the energy. Fe sat in the back room of an old barbershop he used to sweep up in as a teen. Now it was a front stacked with artillery, cell jammers, and burner phones. He rolled a blunt slow, mind running faster than his fingers. Across from him, Kay sat on a crate, hood down, glasses on. Tall and wiry, but sharp as glass. You sure about this, little bro? Fe asked. Kay looked up. You already in it. And if you fall, I ain't gonna be the one watching from the porch. You know that. Fe nodded. I know. But this get ugly. We not just beefing with block hoppers. These Quan niggas, they organized. Quay leaned forward, calm but locked in. Then we organized better elsewhere in the east, abandoned rec center. Santo and Mecco, Quan's blood cousins from Houston, were setting up shop inside the shell of an old gym. A stolen satellite phone crackled with cartel chatter. Crates of guns lined the walls. Men with Texas plates moved through the building like soldiers. Oakland was wide open. Quan may be gone, but his bloodline wanted more than revenge. They wanted control. You think they gonna sit still? Mecco asked. Santo smiled without humor. Nah, I want him to move. That's how we flush him. He walked to a chalkboard, circled the name Quay. Little bro just jumped in the game, Santo said. Let's see how protective big bro really is. Later that night, 85th and Bancroft. Kay walked out the corner store, hoodie over his head, strawberry kiwi swisher in hand. A black Honda crept up slow behind him, tinted windows, no music. Quay didn't panic. He kept walking until he hit the alley cut. Then he stopped. 2 doors popped open. 3 masked men stepped out, all black, no words. Quay smiled, glasses sliding down a little. You niggas don't even introduce yourselves? One man raised his pistol. Blah, blah, 2 quick flashes. One op dropped on the spot, the other caught in the thigh. The third tried to run. Blow, right in the back of the head. Quay stood over him, breathing calm, eyes steady. Didn't say shit, just walked off into the dark. Fee's safe house. Minutes later. Key walked in, slid his pistol onto the table. Yo, he said. Fe turned. What happened? Quan's people tried to slide on me. Twan sat up. What you do? I returned the favor. Fe stood still for a second. Then he looked at Cece. They making moves. Time to send a message. Cece nodded. What you thinking? Fee's voice dropped. I want the city to know we back. Not with no post, not with no chain, with bodies. Mecco, we lost 3. One of them the cousin from San Jose. Santo sighed, lit a Newport. Fe didn't do that. Mecco frowned. How you know? Santo grinned. That was his little brother. Chapter 7, 3 moves ahead. Oakland, California, 6:03 a.m. It was still dark when Fe pulled the blackout curtains closed. The smell of gun oil and pine sol clashed in the air. A war council was forming inside the safe house. Fe at the head of the table like a general. On the wall behind him, a street map of Oakland was marked with red X's, Polaroids, and tape. Cece sat closest. Quan and Fetti leaned over crates. Nitty, freshly shaven and still rocking county boots, held a burner phone with no SIM card. And Kay? He stood in the corner with his arms crossed, hoodie half-zipped, Glock tucked low. This ain't about Quan no more, Fe said. This about power. He circled a block on the map, 94th and MacArthur. They using the old duplex as a stash hub. Word is they moving fent pressed into candy bags. Trying to poison the block and play soldier, Tuan muttered. Cece's jaw clenched. They bold. They desperate, Fe replied. They came to Oakland thinking the throne was up for grabs. Fetti laughed. Until Kay put 3 of them in the dirt. Kay shrugged. They ain't have aim. Fe stepped back and cracked his knuckles. We not gonna play defense no more, he said. It's our move. Santo poured tequila into a chipped glass and stared at the old blueprint of Oakland's underground network. Stash routes, safe houses, off-book security contractors. Quan had only scratched the surface before iron ended him. Now it was Santo's turn to dig deeper. But something kept scratching at the back of his head. Iron was too quiet, too measured. And when Fe quiet, that meant he was loading something lethal. Mecco came in holding his phone. Another one gone. Santo didn't even flinch. Who? Baby K found him in the lake. 1 to the dome. That's 4 bodies in 2 days, Mecco said. You thinking what I'm thinking? Santo stood up and walked to the window. We not fighting a drug crew, he said. We fighting a dynasty. Later that night, Oakland docks. Fe, Nitty, and Tuan met with a shipment contact. For work, for war supplies. 4 crates, military grade, inside, suppressed MP5S Kevlar with fake oak PD patches. And cell signal jammers, and Russian-made night vision goggles. Burner laptops encrypted through Costa Rica. This ain't no street beef, Fe told the contact. This an occupation. The man nodded. Clock's ticking. You sure you're ready? Fe smirked, pulled down his hoodie and tapped his chest. I've been ready since they killed Peace. Kay looked out over the city skyline. Lights flickered. Sirens echoed. They moving like they untouchable, he said. Cece lit a joint. They don't know who they up against. Kay looked over. You ever get tired of it? Cece paused. Exhaled smoke. Yeah, but tired don't mean I quit. Just then her phone buzzed. Cece read the message and handed it to Kay. He read aloud. Target locked, East 20th and Seminary. Fe said. Checkmate's coming early. Quee nodded. Time to load up. Chapter 8. Red sky in the east, 4:42 a.m., East 20th and Seminary. The morning sky bled crimson over the rooftops as if the city knew what was about to happen. Fe stood posted in the shadows of an abandoned duplex, dressed in all black, hoodie, tactical gloves, boots laced tight. His breath was steady. Beside him, Kay checked his mag, slid the Glock into his holster, then nodded like he'd been doing this his whole life. Across the street, 2 of Quan's people stood guard outside the stash house. They were relaxed, laughing about something, passing a backwood back and forth. One of them had his hand on his waistband, the universal sign of false confidence. Fe whispered into his mic, ready? Tuan's voice came through calm and static. North Alley, we in position. Cece followed next. South lot, green light. Nitty, still hungry from county, added, let's eat the hit. At exactly 4:45 a.m., a car alarm 2 blocks down started wailing, set off remotely by Fetti, who was watching through a drone camera from a rooftop nearby. The guards looked left. Fe and Kay moved right. Pop, pop. 2 clean headshots, bodies folded before they hit the grass. Fe motioned forward and the crew moved in like fog. Silencers out, blades drawn. The front door kicked off the hinges by Tuan in one smooth motion. Inside was chaos. Another reached for the AK on the kitchen counter. Cece beat him to it, 2 to the chest and 1 to the chin. Blood hit the fridge, bricks hit the floor. 10 seconds. House cleared. Quan flipped the couch cushions and found the stash. 4 bricks vacuum sealed, marked with Quan's old logo. Next to it, a black duffel full of burner phones, receipts, and a thumb drive. Fe picked it up, smiled. This the playbook. An hour later, safe house. Cece loaded the thumb drive into an offline laptop. Encrypted files popped up. Shipment manifest, names, bank accounts, and drop locations. This ain't just local, she said. They got ops moving from Houston to L.A. Interstate expansion. Fe leaned forward, eyes focused. They trying to turn Oakland into a pipeline. Quan leaned back, whistling. Not on our watch. Kay sipped his iced tea like it was nothing. What's next? Fe closed the laptop. We cut the head off the snake. Meanwhile, across town, Santo stood inside a dusty warehouse turned war room. A call just ended. His eyes were darker than usual. Seminary got hit, Meko said, watching him. Santo didn't blink, just lit a Newport and blew smoke toward the rafters. That wasn't a hit, Santo said. That was a message. A Polaroid of Fe on the wall, then circled it with a message received. Outside, the red sky faded to gray, but the war was just getting started. Fe had made his move. Now the next one would cost blood. Chapter 9, Smoke Don't Lie. Location 86th and Bancroft. Daylight fades, tension don't. The sun dipped behind the hills, but the heat in the streets didn't. Word spread quick about the seminary hit. Quan's old crew was shook, and some started dipping out of town. But the bold ones, the ones loyal to blood or greed, stood 10 toes, ready for payback. Fe knew it was coming, just didn't know when or from where. Inside the spot, Fe's safe house. Fe sat on the couch, hoodie off, a blunt burning slow in his fingers, the smell of stale kush mixed with gun oil and stress. Across from him, Cece cleaned A45 on a towel. Her eyes were distant, not scared, but heavy. Quay stood by the window like a statue, peering through the blinds every 5 seconds. That boy didn't blink. They gonna spin back, Kay said, voice calm. Ain't no way they not. They already in motion, Tuan said, walking in with an unregistered Nextel flip. Intercepted a call. Santo's involved now. He ain't Quan, but he worse. Ruthless, military mind. Fe nodded slow. Let him come. I'm tired of waiting. Later that night, trap on 98th. Nitty had just started moving his own weight again after the breakout. He was staying low-key, making drops, building clout back up in the streets. But he never saw it coming. A silver Audi crept up the block, lights off, windows cracked. Brett! An Uzi erupted. Windows shattered. Bricks cracked. Nitty caught 3 in the shoulder inside as he dove behind a busted fridge near the front door. He was bleeding bad. Fe's phone vibrated on the table. Tuan, Cece said, tossing it to him. Fe, they hit Nitty. Fe stood up slow, rage crawling over him like cold water. He alive? Barely. Took him to Highland Hospital. He ain't talking yet. Fe looked around the room. That's it. No more reaction. No more defense. We taking this shit to their front porch. Kay cracked his knuckles. I've been waiting. Cece loaded a fresh clip. Wherever they hide, I'll find them. Fe stepped out the door, lit a new blunt from the old one and muttered, Don't lie. And that shit in the air tonight? That's blood. Meanwhile, Santo's warehouse, Santo stood in silence, shirt off, tattoos crawling across his chest like a mural of death. He stared at the blood-soaked jacket one of his hitters brought back. Whoever did this to Quan, whoever keeps pressing like this. He picked up a machete, then swung it across a watermelon on the table. Splack! Red juice hit the wall. Back on the east, the sky was black now. The air was thick. The hunt was on. Fe, Cece, Tuan, and Kay moved like shadows, silent but full of fury. And Nitty, he was still alive, but just barely. This wasn't no turf war anymore. This was surgical. This was personal. This was still Greasy. Chapter 10, No Love Lost. Location, East Oakland, 7:41 p.m. The streetlights hummed above like they knew what was coming. Fe stood in the middle of a closed-down barbershop on 89th, the floorboards dusty, the mirrors cracked. This was one of the last untouched corners from before the war, before Chrissy's disappearance, before Carter, before Quan, before everything got greasy. Fe had turned it into a war room. On the chalkboard, Santo, Mecho, drop points, and burners, laundromats, 2 key stash houses still untouched. He circled a name at the bottom, Lucky. He's the one holding the key, Fe said. He think he low, but I know where he played dice and where he get his hair cut. Tuan leaned forward. What's the play? We don't press him. We spook him. Later that night, 10:02 p.m., Slim's barbershop seminary. Lucky sat in a chair, cape over his chest, laughing with the barber about old high school drama. Then the lights cut off. Aw, hell nah, Slim, pay your damn bill. The door creaked open. Fe walked in slow, all black, hoodie low, gloves on. Quay right behind him, pistol tucked but visible. Cece posted by the front door, her presence alone enough to shut the room up. Lucky froze. Aye, Fe, chill blood. Fe didn't say a word, Just walked up and grabbed the cape, yanked it off, and leaned close. You seen Nitty get hit? Lucky shook his head fast. Nah, I swear to God, I ain't had nothing to do with that. I'm just a lookout for drop nights, that's it. Fe nodded slowly. I believe you. Lucky looked relieved. But that's the problem, Fe said. You know too much. Blow. Quay didn't hesitate. One to the kneecap. Lucky screamed, sliding out the chair onto the tile floor, blood pooling fast. You gonna tell me everything, Fe said cold. Every spot, every runner, every burner line. Lucky coughed through the pain. They moving in the old funeral home on 75th. That's where Santo's staying. It's rigged up, got snipers on the roof. They using the caskets to move work. Guns too. Fe looked at Quay. You trust him? Quay raised the gun again, then paused. Nah, blow. Lucky's body dropped like bad dice. Back at the trap. Cece lit a black and mild on the porch while Tuan poured shots inside. That funeral home's next, she said. Fe nodded. One by one, brick by brick. Kay sat nearby, blood still on his sleeve, quiet. You good? Fe asked. Quay didn't look up. Ain't no love in this game, big bro. I'm just learning that fast. Fe leaned back in his chair, eyes hard. That's the first lesson. Meanwhile, inside the funeral home, Santo stood behind a velvet curtain, sipping dark tequila out of gold chalice. Mecco rushed in. They hit Lucky. Santo took a slow sip. Then we got a funeral to plan. He smiled, cold, calculated, because he knew something Fe didn't. There was a rat in the trap, and he was about to make his move. Chapter 11, Dead Flowers. Greasy. The sun cut sharp across the East Oakland skyline, but inside Cece's apartment, the temperature was ice cold. Not from the weather, but from the pressure. She sat on the edge of her bed, phone still warm from the last call. Her hands trembled, her mind racing. They came for her that morning. 2 suits, Fed types. Knocked soft, but carried heavy. You Cece Carter? Used to be, she answered, trying to hide the fear in her voice. Mind if we talk? They didn't wait for a response. They moved like they already owned the place. Badge flips, firm stares, quick lies. We know you've been in close contact with Felix Miller, a.k.a. Fe. We also know there's a war brewing. You can either be part of the cleanup or part of the mess. She crossed her arms. Y'all ain't got shit on me. The older one leaned forward, voice calm but cutting. Maybe not enough for court, but enough to cause you problems. Custody battles, asset freezes, surveillance. That's pressure. The room spun. You're protecting a killer, Cece, a known trafficker, and we know exactly what went down at that funeral home 2 nights ago. Her heart dropped. She hadn't even told Effie about the quiet calls, the ones that came in blocked, the ones where they mentioned things no one else should have known, times, locations, her involvement. They weren't bluffing. She cracked, not fully, but just enough. He made the call from 47th. That's all I know, she said, avoiding their eyes. Good girl, the agent smirked. They left without a word, without a warning, just like ghosts. Later that day, Fe pulled up in the Cutlass hoodie low. The city felt different, like somebody turned the volume down, like everything was moving slow. He walked inside Cece's spot, kissed her cheek, and sat down. Everything good? Cece nodded, but her eyes said otherwise. I'm just tired, she mumbled, curling into him. Fe rubbed her back but didn't push. His instincts told him something was off, but he couldn't place it. Not yet. While Fe and the crew plotted their next move, news. The funeral home on 83rd got hit by a silent warrant. Cameras removed, floors lifted. A tip had come through, and the feds were already unzipping body bags, sniffing out what used to be sacred ground for laundering and drops. Fe heard the news from Nitty and froze. Who the fuck knew about that spot, he asked. The room went quiet. Nobody answered. But in the corner, Cece's eyes stayed low. Chapter 12. Cut from a different cloth. Greasy. Fe lit a backwood and leaned against the cracked frame of the trap house door, watching traffic slide by on 81st like ghosts on a mission. His mind was loud, but his face stayed quiet. He couldn't shake the feeling, that tingling weight in his chest, the kind you only get when something close to you shifts, like the air changes before a storm. Something told him somebody gave up the play. And it wasn't just anybody. It had to be close. Nitty, who sat at the kitchen table loading up You sure nobody else knew about the funeral home? Fe asked, calmly but firm. Nitty nodded. Just us. And Cece. Fe didn't say anything at first. He just stared off, dragging the blunt until it burned down to the filter. Where's she at now? He asked. Home. She'd been low since the funeral spot got raided. Fe sucked his teeth. She ain't just been low, she's been off. Meanwhile, back at Cece's apartment, Cece sat on the couch in the dark, a glass of wine, untouched. The TV played static in the background. Her phone buzzed for the 4th time. Fe, again. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked over to the table and picked up the envelope the feds left behind. Just a reminder. Inside was a picture of her and Fe laughing in the back of his car. A timestamp, a location, a quiet threat. Her eyes watered. But not from fear, from frustration. She hadn't meant to turn on Fe, but they were squeezing her, tight. They wanted more, and she already gave them a little, just a taste. The funeral home hit? That was her doing, a trade-off. She thought it would end there. It didn't. They called again. You did good, Cece, but now we want the drop on Felix. Give us the next move, or we'll take it out on your family, your grandmother, your little cousin who goes to Frick Middle. Think we bluffing? Back with the crew, Fe pulled up on Key, his younger brother, outside the old liquor store. Quay was dressed down, black hoodie, jeans, Glock bulging in his waistband, slender frame, glasses fogged. But behind him, a dead stare, quiet killer vibes. You ready? Fe asked. Say the word. Key nodded. Fe handed him a folded note. If this shit go left, give this to Cece's grandma, but wait until I'm gone. Kay stared. What's this? Fe exhaled smoke. Insurance. That night, Fe finally stepped into Cece's place. No knocking. She jumped. Fe. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. You want to tell me why the funeral home got hit 2 days after I laid up with you? Cece's throat tightened. I don't know. Don't lie to me. She paused, then sat down. I didn't want to, Fe. I swear. They came at me sideways, talking about Grandma and the kids, and Fe stepped forward, jaw clenched. He didn't speak, didn't blink. You gave up the play, he said. Tears ran down her face. They don't have a case. It was just one drop. I thought it would keep you safe. Bang. A bullet smashed through the living room window, slicing through the air, embedding itself into the wall behind them. They both hit the floor. Another shot. Closer. Fe peeked up, gun drawn. Shit, they followed me, he said, crawling over to Cece. We gotta move. Now. They ran out the back, ducking behind the neighbor's fence. Fe let off 2 shots at the dark silhouettes closing in from across the street. It wasn't Quan. These were new wolves. But Fe knew better. If the feds were done pressuring Cece, they were starting to clean up loose ends. As they escaped through the alley, Fe turned back one last time. The dead flowers in Cece's windowsill swayed in the wind, wilting, quiet, forgotten, just like the trust they once had. Chapter 13, The Hard Way, Greasy. 2 days passed since the shots rang out through Cece's apartment. Fe hadn't said a word to her since. He moved like a ghost, quiet, focused, locked in. Trust was broken. Love couldn't survive where betrayal lived. And now, everything had to be earned back the hard way. Early morning, East Oakland safe house. Fe stood at the edge of a metal table in the garage-turned war room. His eyes scanned over photos, burner logs, blueprints. His mind was calculating 5 moves ahead. Quan and Nitty were pacing. They shooting at Cece crib in broad daylight? Nitty said. These boys don't care about nothing no more. Quan nodded. Feds moving different, like they cleaning up for a whole new operation. Fe finally spoke. They got what they needed from her. Now they trying to burn the house down, start fresh, without us in the picture. Nitty looked at Fe. What you want to do? Fe tapped the table. We flip it, we bait them, we make them think they know what we planning. He paused and looked up at Quay, who was sitting in the back sharpening a blade slow. And then we do the exact opposite. Meanwhile, Cece. She was staying in an old hotel on the edge of San Leandro, ducked off behind a liquor store and a check-cashing spot. The stress had aged her, eyes red, hands shaking. The feds hadn't reached back out yet, but she knew they would. A voicemail from Fe sat unanswered. She played it again. You made a choice. You gotta live with it now. Just know, if you ever want to fix it, it won't be with words. Her fingers hovered over the call back button, but she didn't press it. Nightfall, 75th and Melrose. Fe set up the fake drop. Word was seeded through back channels, stage convos, burner chatter, even a loose runner with a loud mouth. It was bait. A clean, juicy setup. At 11:47 p.m., a black SUV pulled up. 2 agents stepped out, dressed like civilians but too stiff to blend in. One lit a cigarette, the other watched the roofline. Just as planned. Quay, posted on a nearby roof, whispered through the comms. Eyes on, Fe and Nitty were waiting 2 blocks over, tucked inside an unmarked white van. Fe nodded. Let it breathe. We want them all out in the open. Quan checked his watch. You sure this gonna flush Santo out too? Fe looked through binoculars. He'll come. He always got to see the fire with his own eyes. 15 minutes later, SUV gets sprayed. Blah, 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 blah. Kay lit the scene up from the roof. 4 rapid shots. One agent dropped, the other ran for cover but caught a ricochet to the leg. Sirens didn't even have time to spin up before Fe and Nitty moved in. Grabbed the laptops, a burner bag, and vanished back, a full smash and vanish. Cece showed up. Fe didn't look up when she walked in. She stood there for a long time. I didn't mean for it to go like that. Fe exhaled slow. That's the problem. You didn't mean anything. You just did it. Tears welled in her eyes. You gonna kill me? Fe stood, finally looking her in the face. Did, he said, the second you gave up the team. He walked past her, brushing her shoulder as he left the room. Final scene, Santo in a motel room. Meko patched up a gunshot wound on his arm while Santo stared at a laptop screen. On it, surveillance of Fe's fake drop, and something else. Footage of Quay, moving, shooting, tactical. Santo smiled dark. They just showed us their night, he said. Now we pull the board, chapter 14, Cold Nights and Crossroads. Greasy. The air had shifted in Oakland, not just the weather, but the vibe. It felt colder than usual. Even the stray dogs didn't bark the same. Everybody was watching their back. Everybody was talking less. Fe had gone dark. No calls, no check-ins. South Oakland, Cece's motel room. Cece sat alone, staring at her reflection in the dusty bathroom mirror. The eyes looking back at her weren't the same. They belonged to someone who'd lost more than she bargained for. She reached for her phone, Fe's number still pinned. Should I? Before she could press call, a knock hit the door. Sharp, controlled. She grabbed the .38 she kept under the bed and moved to the peephole. It was Nitty. She opened the door slow. I ain't got nothing left to say, she muttered. I do, he said, stepping inside. He tossed the burner phone on the bed. Fe said if you really trying to fix shit, you gotta earn it. Said to prove you still loyal. Cece clenched her jaw. How? Nitty looked her dead in the eye. Santo's having a sit-down tomorrow night. Real hush. You get the location, we'll handle the rest. Next night, West Oakland. Fe, Quan, K, and Nitty sat in a tight circle inside a boarded-up laundromat. Gas cans, zip ties, blueprints. They were plotting war. Fe spoke low. If she delivers, we move. If not, we move anyway. K loaded his weapon slow. Ain't gonna lie, I'm still not rocking with her. Fe looked at him. Me neither. Meanwhile, Santo. Inside a trap house disguised as a soul food spot, Santo met with two cartel liaisons from down south. Meko stood nearby, bandaged and limping. Harder, Meko said. One of them a young shooter. Real. Santo chuckled. Let me guess. Glasses? Yeah. Santo nodded. That's Cafe's little brother, the wild card. He poured a glass of dark liquor and lifted it to his lips. Let's cut his leash. Later that night, Cece's play. Cece walked into a rundown building on 35th. She spotted a familiar face. Lisa, one of the neighborhood's older lookouts. They embraced like sisters. Cece slipped her a note in a burner wrapped in foil. Get this to Fe. Tonight. Lisa raised an eyebrow. You sure about this, after everything? Cece nodded. I ain't got no more tears. All I got left is to make it right. Fe pulled up in a blacked-out SUV. The crew was loaded. Quan hit the brakes and whispered. She delivered. They spotted movement inside. Santo. Metro. 4 more soldiers. Guns tucked under coats. Business being discussed. Fe looked at Quay. You ready? Quay racked his piece and nodded. Always. Gunfire erupted. Glass shattered. Pop, pop, pop. Fe kicked the church door wide open and walked through the smoke. Her bodies everywhere. One guard crawled. Quan finished him, cold. Meko got clipped in the side trying to escape. And Santo? Gone. Slipped out a side door before the chaos. Final scene, Cece walking through the rain, hood up. She stopped at the corner and looked around. No car, no Fe, no word. Then a black SUV crept up beside her. The window rolled down. Fe sat behind the wheel. He didn't say a word. She got in. They rode off into the darkness. Nothing but the hum of the engine and the weight of what they couldn't undo. Chapter 15. Smoke signals. Greasy. Oakland smelled like fire. Not from a building blaze or no busted pipe. It was the scent of retaliation. Gunpowder, blood, gas fumes, and tears. That unspoken aroma that floated through the city when somebody's clock just stopped ticking. This time it wasn't just a body, it was a message. Early morning, Fe's safe house, 87th and Olive. The air inside was heavy. Nobody spoke. Quan sat sharpening a blade, eyes locked on the wall like he was carving a name into memory. Cece sat in the corner, clutching her phone, barely blinking. Nitty stormed in, phone shaking in his hand. Bro. Fe turned calm but tense. They got quit. Time froze. Where? Fe asked, already pulling on his hoodie. Off Seminary. Next to that gas station by the corner store. He was leaving Grandma's house. Fe's knuckles turned white. They kill him? Nitty shook his head. Nah, not yet. Scene shift. A warehouse on the edge of the port. Quay was tied to a chair, blood leaking from his lip. Santo stood across from him, sipping from a flask. You the quiet one, huh? Santo said. Quay didn't respond. Felix been playing chess, thinking he's ahead, but he forgot something. Santo leaned in close. Even pawns can be sacrificed. Through the blood. Funny. That's what Fe said. Up. A punch snapped his head back, but K never broke. Back with Fe. The crew rolled deep. Black Suburbans, no plates. Heavy hitters in the back, all masked. They weren't moving like a street crew no more. This was military formation. Where we hitting? Quan asked. Fe stared out the window, mind gone cold. Wherever they holding K, we going in loud. Meanwhile, Santo's last mistake. Back at the warehouse, Meko checked the perimeter and gave a quick nod. But what he didn't see was the drone hovering 3 blocks back, live feed piping into Nitty's cracked burner phone. Fe watched the screen. There, he pointed, to on floor of the Suburban. 10 minutes later, the raid, the back door blew open. Flashbang, boom, screams, gunfire. Bodies dropped, shotgun in hand. One blast took out a soldier near, another shot to the chest. Cece rushed through the side, ducked behind crates, sprang from a Tech 9. Tuan cut the ropes from K, who stood up on his own, dazed but breathing. You good? Tuan asked. K nodded. Yeah, but he ain't. They cornered Santo near the exit, holding him at gunpoint. Santo smiled through cracked teeth. I could have killed him. Fee raised the sawed-off. You should have. Boom. Santo's body dropped like it didn't matter. Aftermath, East Oakland rooftop. Fe and K sat on the edge, city lights blinking in the distance. You ain't got to prove nothing to me, Key said. I'm with you till it's done. Fe nodded. It ain't done. He lit a blunt, exhaled. Not till they all gone. Feds, runners, rats. He paused, looking up at the dark sky. Let him see the smoke. Final chapter. Greasy forever. The close. The war had taken lives, shattered loyalties, and twisted good intentions into blood-stained chess pieces. But somehow, they survived. And not just survived, won. Not by wiping out every enemy, not by stacking bodies taller than his pain, but by letting go of some of it. Not all. Just enough. Cece's redemption. They stood at the edge of the same rooftop where it all started. Fe looked out over East Oakland, his city, his battlefield. Cece stood next to him, quiet, broken but still breathing. She hadn't said a word in minutes. She thought this was the end, that he was going to cut her off, or worse. But he turned to her slowly, eyes soft for the first time in weeks. Killed your pops for me, he said low. I ain't forgot that. She nodded. I betrayed you. You protected me too, he said. That ain't something I can ignore. Tears rolled down her face. He grabbed her hand. I forgive you, Cece. I still love you. That's the part I can't kill. The beach was calm. Fe sat in a lounge chair, shirt off, shades low, drink in hand. Cece lay beside him, legs crossed, smiling for real this time, not the forced smile she used to wear back home. They weren't hiding. They were finished with survival. At least for now. Nitty had made it out too, banged up, paranoid, but finally free. He'd bought a small hookah lounge in Orangestad, stayed lit 24/7, and still wore a bulletproof vest to the grocery store. Back in Oakland, K's reign, the block didn't sleep. Quay kept it locked down with precision. Slender, glasses still on, but his heart was black now, surgical, ice cold. The streets respected him. Fe taught him strategy. The war taught him ruthlessness. His crew, young, hungry, loyal. Oakland was greasy again, but this time it was under Fe's control. Remotely, quietly. Every drop, every corner, every politician with a price tag still answered to him. Fetti, living clean. Credit seminars on weekends, a YouTube channel blowing up with from felonies to funding stories. Still tapped in, but now from an office, not a trap house. Final scene, Aruba balcony. Fe stared out over the ocean, cigar lit, Cece asleep inside. Quay, everything good? Fe asked. Smooth, Kay said. Block moving, whole city listening. You sure you don't want to come back? Fe smiled, dragging slow on the cigar. Exactly, Fe replied. This chessboard's still mine. He hung up, took a sip of dark rum, watched the waves crash, then whispered to himself, smirking. Still greasy, the end. A story of loyalty, betrayal, blood, and survival. Rita to Aruba. Felix Miller stayed 10 steps ahead.